Allow me to open the conference of the European Future of European Agriculture 2021. Dear friends of agriculture, allow me to welcome you at this third conference on the future of European agriculture. In the first place, I should thank Mr. Martin Čermák, who has done most of the work, absolutely, without which this conference could not be possible. In the past, I myself organized many similar events, and so I can imagine what it takes, what a great deal of work it takes for the conference to function well. I also thank two other collaborators who have participated in preparations. I must always express my thanks to all active participants who have found the time to prepare their statements and will share with us, share their experience with us. And finally, we want to thank to all those who monitor the presentations and will follow them from record. The agriculture deserves much more attention than how much it is devoted to it. All of us encounter a paradoxical situation. Each of us is interested in sufficient, good quality and affordable foodstuffs. All of them like to consume them, but nobody or few people are interested in agriculture and food industry from which these foodstuffs come. The public interest in agriculture is on the decline. I think that it's connected with the experience. And in agriculture, thanks to a great growth of labor productivity, there are fewer and fewer people working there. Whereas some 100 years ago, in the territory of the then Czechoslovakia, there were millions of citizens and their families. Today, it's about 100,000 people, including the food industry. If we include their families, it's only a few percent of population. Over the past 3 generations, the relationship of European inhabitants to agricultural practice has dropped. In the countryside, they look for recreation without perceiving the positive active influence of agriculture on landscape shaping. Our German colleagues even complains about frequent manifestations of hatred towards farmers, which is stirred up by the media and climate activists who repeat frequently that the farmers are among the biggest ruiners of the environment. For especially big ruiners, big agricultural enterprises are taken without regard to the fact that they fulfill all the requirements of protection of the environment, whereas the petty farmers are not subject to any verification in this regard. A few weeks ago, the process of preparation of the so-called Common Agricultural Policy of the European Union was finalized. Quite brand news is the adoption of the agriculture in EU member states to requirements of the so-called struggle for climate neutrality. Responsibility has been transferred to the individual EU member states who are supposed to prepare their own strategic plans, but of course they will be subject to verification by the Commission. In the 21st century, we should be guided by science, not only by individual pieces of knowledge, but especially by the principle that what is always at stake is to explore the premises, that is the starting points for continuous implications and hypotheses. In the EU Parliament, especially the socialists, the green and the leftists try to put through climate neutrality of Europe. These are drastic measures supposed to lead to a 55% drop or decrease of the green gas production in EU. However, air does not stay over the European Union as it is, but it streams. So it's coming to the Union from other areas, and the biggest producers of green gases admit that they will follow the EU only in a few decades. China is trying to resolve its energy hunger through renewing the coal-fired mines that they had closed already and building new coal-fired power stations. Some time ago, I attended the climate conference in Glasgow. The advocates of the Green Deal from the European Parliament invited delegations from various countries. Their representatives politely refused to oblige themselves to an early following of the EU. For example, the Republic of Korea, which produces 64% of energy in coal-fired power plants and 34% in nuclear power plants and 2% from renewable resource sources. However, the Korean Minister for the Environment said that Korea is a democratic country and it's the citizens that would decide about the pace and how the country would resolve the growing energy need. The Union struggle against the carbon and methane redoubles the result of the growing prices of energy raw materials. The so-called strategy Fit for 55 and the Farm to Fork strategy were adopted, and their implementation is enforced in national strategic plans without any studies about the impacts. The study that the Commission had available was kept in secrecy even for half a year, so the estimates of the impacts would not stand in the way of a smooth approval process in the European Parliament. According to the individual studies, 15 to 25% reduction of agricultural production as a result of the new measures is expected, with the respective reduction of income of agricultural farms and the need to increase imports from areas beyond the EU, and of course with the growth of food prices. The farmers in the whole of European Union encounter growing prices practically in all inputs, not only the prices of mineral fertilizers, energy, seeds, pesticides, water, rents, personal costs, etc. The farmers must cope with strict standards, whereas their competitors beyond the EU mostly do not need to meet them. The observing of the strict norms in the EU is regarded by the WTA as an intolerable impediment of free trade. In the EU, it is prohibited to support mass growth of the slaughter cattle by growth hormones, but the EU lost the arbitration proceedings and is forced to suffer import of the beef with growth hormone from the United States, which the European Parliament approved under the name import of highly quality beef from the USA. But Canada cannot export beef to EU, but Canada can export to Europe lentils, though it is allowed to spray glyphosate even 4 days before harvest. For Canada to be able to export lentils to Europe in such a way, the Union standards of maximum content of glyphosate in lentils in 2012 actually increased 3 times. Ideologists of the Green Deal have the force to enforce on the EU members' norms, which the European Union put the European Union to disadvantage international trade. But the World Trade Organization is stronger and enforces the standards than the EU. Why am I giving this example? So that it is apparent that the Green Deal, it is true, damages economy and especially the agriculture in the EU, but practically it does not resolve the warming of the planet at all. Though over the past years in the EU, production of CO2 was reduced by 40%. Biodiversity is still decreasing. Those who put forward the Green Deal are sometimes described as progressive people, but they do not try to put through any progress. The opposite is true. In the yesterday's meeting of the Agricultural Committees, when the experts and representatives of the EU emphatically recommended a reassessment of the legal standards of the European Union in the field of gene manipulation, because the EU are surpassed in this particular sphere even by third world countries. And for example, the Danish experts must work in China and USA because in EU the research is drastically constrained. The MPs of Socialist, Green and the leftists were against, though genetically modified soya beans and other crops are imported in the EU, in spite of the fact that production in the EU is prohibited. The advocates of the Green Deal are against using fertilizers, not only the machine-brought fertilizers, but even others, and they recommend to leave the land as it is. Like in the Middle Ages, the system of three layers, three tiers. Even one of them actually proposed the prohibition of ploughing or tilling. They suppose the restraining of consuming of meat, especially beef, because of the inadequate or consumption of fodder crops, water, and production of methane. They put through their idea about more healthy plant nourishing and veganism. They put through absolute protection of wolves, bears, otters, and liquidation on non-native or non-indigenous species. They are against that what modern times has brought to agriculture, and then the nourishing of people, and high efficiency and concentration of production, and affordable food rich in proteins, and liquidation of insects and molds. They refer, as a rule, to the future scientific research or overestimate the potential of scientific knowledge. As a doctor, I proceed from the principle of primum non ser. Do not do any damage, first of all. If the Green Deal was evaluated as a medicine, it wouldn't be approved, because the favorable effects are negligible, but the side effects are very obvious. In the years to come, the EU population is threatened, among other things, by the growth of food prices, worsened quality. The agriculture are threatened by economic difficulties and depopulation in the country. We should focus our efforts on the growth of self-sufficiency. We should defend ourselves against imports for dumping prices and unacceptable limitation of free choice, and of course to all other damaging climatological ideologies. Paraphrasing the films, How the Poets Lose Their Illusions, I would say that not only positive social securities are in store for us. Thank you very much.